Hello, my name is Estefania Regalado. I am going to talk about global and national status of L1 and L2 and language borders and identity. The first one is the influence of language status and acquisition. The language power and status is the both globally and nationally significantly impact that second language acquisitions. This influence is shaped by official policies for cultural and practical considerations. The second one is political and symbolic functions. That that's the language serve political roles fostering national unity. For example, the English in the USA and acting as symbol of conquest or cultural identity. For example, Hebreo in Israel, Spanish in South America. The perceived economic status and a language also drives a learning outcomes and motivation. The finally, acculturation and boundaries. These social and linguistic boundaries influence an acquisition and acculturation for adapting a new community cultures and values is key when crossing for borders at the social distance and a desire to maintain I can also impact language learning outcomes. That's all. Thank you.
Today, I want to talk about two important topics related to language learning institutional force and constraints and addictive bilingualism. First, institutional force and constraints refer to how institutions like school, governments, or media can influence the way people learn language. For example, a school may offer English class promoting the language or may have limited resources which made learning harder. Something these forces help students become bilingual, but other times they can restrict access to quality language education, so institutions have a strong impact on our opportunities to learn and use new language. Knowledge is all about addictive bilingualism. This happens when a person learns a second language without losing their first language. Both languages are maintained and appreciated. This topic of bilingualism is very positive because it allows people to keep their cultural identity while gaining new skills and opportunities. It also supports cognitive development and better communication in multicultural environments. In conclusion, institutions shape or access to language learning and addictive bilingualism helps us grow personally and socially.
Good evening, teacher. My name is Adriana Vega. So today I'm going to talk about circumstances of learning. When we talk about circumstances of learning in second language acquisition, we are referring to the social and environmental factors that influence how a person learns a second language. These factors play a huge role in shaping the learning experience, their motivation, and even the strategies they use to learn. Let's start with educational and cultural background. A learner's past experiences, like the kind of schooling they have or the way their learning was approached in their culture, can really affect how they pick up a new language. For instance, in many Asian cultures, students are taught to memorize as a core learning method. Because of that, they often do well on tasks that involve memorization, like vocabulary or numbers, but this same approach might not be as effective for students from cultures that focus more on discussion or creative expression. So, the learning strategy that works best can depend on what the learning is used to. Now, moving on learning contexts, we can divide them into two many types: naturalistic and formal learning. Naturalistic learning happens informally, usually when someone is surrounded by the language in everyday life. For example, if a family moves abroad for work and they are living in a multilingual community, they pick up the language just by interacting with neighbors, shopping, or going to school. That's language learning in action through immersion. On the other hand, formal or instructed learning takes place in classroom or structured programs. Think of bilingual schools, study abroad programs, or language classes where learners study grammar, vocabulary, and use the language for academic subjects. These formal settings are especially effective when students come from different language backgrounds and can learn from each other. So overall, both the learner's background and learning setting, whether it's natural, formal, or mix of both, shape the way they learn a second language and how successful that process will be. Thank you.
Good evening, teacher. My name is Jennifer Torres, and I'm going to talk about individual bilingualism. First place, individual bilingualism involves the ability of a person to acquire and use a second language. There are some characteristics of this topic. The first one is code independence. It is about clearly defined codes in automatic language. The second one is alternation. It is the quick and effortless shift from one code to another. And the last one is translation. It expresses a similar meaning in either code. On the other hand, we also have the social bilingualism, and we're gonna see from two different perspectives. The first one is the socio-psychological perspective, and it consists in multi-ethnic societies. A child's ethnic group's status often depends on its political and economic dominance. There are two types of bilingualism. As you can see in the picture, we have the additive bilingualism. It consists of members of a dominant group can learn a subordinate group's language without losing their first language or ethnic identity. The second one is the subtractive bilingualism. Members of a subordinate group who learn the dominant language as a second language may lose some of their ethnic identity and some skills as well. For instance, this could be the case of indigenous speakers that may come in contact with communities that live along the borders. And we have also the social perspective, and bilingualism influences communities where two languages are spoken or where members are bilingual. To conclude this topic, there are some factors that lead to a bilingual situation, such as expansion, unification, post colonial situation, immigration, and cosmopolitanism. Thank you. We have the types of bilingualism. The first one is the coordinate bilingualism. It's when exposed to two different languages from each parent early in life, and a child can naturally develop and manage both languages as separate systems. The second one is compound bilingualism, and children raised in bilingual homes may speak both languages fluently, but they might not fully grasp the deeper meaning of each one. And subordinate or late bilingualism. It develops after the critical period and is learned through immersion or formal study, relying on memory.
Today I'm going to present the three important theories about the bilingualism. The first, the balance theory, proposes that if we learn a language more, the other language weakens. Imagine two balloons in the brain. If one grows, the other shrinks. This idea assumes that the brain has a limited capacity to learn languages. However, research has shown that this is not the case and that we can develop both languages at the same time, so this theory was discarded. Then there is the Common Underlying Proficiency or CUP model. This theory says that although the languages appear to be separate, they actually feed off the same mental base. The metaphor is that of two icebergs connected underwater. If you strain them, one you improve skills such as reading, thinking, or problem solving, which also benefits the other languages. Finally, the third school theory relates to the level of language proficiency to mental benefits. It has three levels.
If a person has low proficiency in both languages, there are disadvantages. If he masters one more than the other, there are few effects. But if he or she is proficient in both, there are advantages such as better logical and academic reasoning. This theory helps to understand why balanced bilingualism is so valuable, although it doesn't define exactly how high that proficiency should be.
Explain the linguistic interdependence hypothesis by Jim Cummins. This hypothesis suggests that a child's ability to learn a second language or L2 depends on how well they already develop their first language or L1. In other words, the stronger the foundation in L1, the easier it will be to learn and succeed in L2. Cummins also introduced two important concepts, "bigs" and "culp". "Bigs" refers to everyday conversational skills, like chatting with friends. They are learned quickly, usually within 1 to 2 years. "Culp", on the other hand, is the academic language used in school, like reading textbooks or writing essays. This takes much longer to develop, often 5 to 7 years. So, when we support a child's first language, we are not slowing down their second language. We're actually building a strong bridge for future learning. Thank you.